When Scarlet Nexus was first announced back at an early Xbox Series presentation, my first thought was, this is anime Devil May Cry, as if it was continuing Namco Bandai's march to making anime games for every genre, following the trend set by Anime Souls with Code Vein and Anime Monster Hunter with God Eater. It made logical sense. To my surprise, it became clear this was more action JRPG, one with a unique setting in the self-named brainpunk genre, that is, cyberpunk for the Pokemon Go age. A game that replicates the anime experience has always been a promising proposition for Japanese game fans, something that would capture the cool aesthetics and unique stories that seem to exist only in Japanese animation. And as graphic technology has improved, it seems we've come closer to visuals that match or even exceed 2D animation, which is on full display in Scarlet Nexus, where if anything, the visuals, animation, and just visual presentation captures being in an anime, perhaps more than any game before. Visuals are one thing. While I was excited that Namco Bandai was bringing forth a new JRPG, one that avoided the new trend of being a school setting, being a JRPG brings certain standards to meet in the world, character, structure, combat, and story. Simply just capturing the anime look would not be enough. Scarlet Nexus puts its best foot forward, starting from a unique premise. It boasts the marketing term brainpunk to describe its world, which feels like a creative take on future cityscapes influenced by our connected modern world. Street signs and advertisements are augmented reality artifacts. Text messages are sent and read in the mind's eye. People are connected not by the internet but by the brain. It's a society built on unlocking the power of the mind. Enter main characters Yuto and Kasane, members of the psychic-powered military outfit OSF, tasked with defending Suho City from the brain-eating, magical Modica-looking others. But of course, there's more to the others in the OSF than there seems. The premise is interesting, even if it can feel like a less gritty Attack on Titan at times. Yet it also highlights the first stumbling block. The first 15 minutes where you find yourself in the cityscape of Suho City could give the impression that this is a place you'll learn to love. You'll spend time here, meet cool NPCs, and have party member meetups at the ramen stand you'll come to know, playing into the strengths of a JRPG hub city, which would make sense as Suho City is an important part of the story. Instead, it never becomes more than cool wallpaper, echoing the somewhat lifeless level design that adorns the rest of the game. You never really feel a part of the world as you spend more time in an apartment room than discovering what the important city-state is actually like. Important story beats such as a city revolution happen, but the player would hardly know or care, instead dealing with anime trope problems far away from an environment that could make you really feel the brainpunk. More lifeless than Soho City are the environments you traverse through. Neat in their aesthetic, yes, but also simple in their layout, which becomes more damning as you traverse them more than once. Scarlet Nexus is split into two campaigns, Yuto's and Kasane's. They share most of the same levels, which, as said, the levels aren't that exciting, meaning they can somewhat tire in a second playthrough. Yet that's not the most damaging aspect of this character split. It is instead that the story suffers. Many games employ the multiple perspective angle and hope to play with context and framing, hoping that giving the player information at different points will allow them to connect dots and be very engaged. Scarlet Nexus mostly fails at this. Playing Yuto's campaign can often feel like you're missing important information, and not in a twisty, interesting way. More like, are you going to explain what's going on? Kasane's story does come in and actually explain some of those questions, but I'm not sure leaving the explanation, for example, what the conflict is, in another playthrough was a smart choice. Because of this, revelations and twists can fall on deaf ears. A main antagonist hardly feels like a presence in one campaign. Character turns can feel like they happen out of nowhere in another. Deaths lose impact when they are told to the player like, oh, by the way, that happened. Regardless of the split, the story feels like it goes off the deep end, with a rather flabby jump. Anime fans may defend this story's nonsense as being anime, but the game feels like it throws every cliche and concept in the pot. Time travel, psychic powers, ancient humans, space travel, and so on. It feels like a checklist and moves away from the supposed brainpunk setting that was the most interesting aspect. Little story beats such as how people without psychic powers live in this brain-powered society, or how people live in the psychic military are neat, but aren't the focus. Instead, going crazy seems to be. Still, the characters are surprisingly okay. They don't move past their tropes and wear them on their character design. The Persona-like social link sub-stories are exactly what you would expect, but they still don't offend. mind. The game never feels like a waifu simulator. Even the cold Kasane feels less stereotypical when you play from her viewpoint. In play is probably the best aspect of Scarlet Nexus. In the ever-growing field of action RPGs, it carves out its own style. At first it can feel a little unfinished. Unlike many action games, there are no iframes, so dodging can feel a bit imprecise, as if it has to be done even before enemy roll-up. Attacking can feel underdeveloped as there are no major combo strings beyond the simple and expandable press the attack button in sequence. That's where the SAS system comes in place. A system that allows you to take on your party members' abilities. Can't dodge? Well, use your friend's shield ability and take no damage. Want to amplify your attacks? Borrow the fire or lighting abilities. Maybe move fast so you can put in more hits. With the ability to use up to 4 powers at once, as well as pulling makeshift weapons from the environment with your psychic powers, combat is always engaging. You truly feel accomplished as you mix and match abilities with stylish precision. It can become even deeper as you grow your relationships with your party members and gain abilities that allow a small use of their own moveset. Combat is only let down by the fact that enemy variety is low. It feels like by the 3rd dungeon you've seen most of what the game has to offer, with later levels throwing the same enemies at you in almost the same combinations as hours before, becoming even more dull as you repeat the same tactics on the same enemies in the same levels during a second playthrough. Yet no matter what, the game's visual identity didn't dull me. The flashy animations never disappoint, and the game's presentation of psychic powers lives up to the imagination. Throwing parts of the environment never feels cheap. The only aspect that may drive down the presentation is the comic book panel-like animated cutscenes. I admire the developers' effort to use their budget well and still have talking head cutscenes have some life, but they can be overly long and do not hold a candle to when the game does have full animated cutscenes. Still, Scarlet Nexus does look the part. Teens with psychic powers are something no doubt anime fans are used to. Scarlet Nexus doesn't really move past what anime or JRPG fans already know, and in a way that's very disappointing. But perhaps a Season 2 could be a standout. I'm Jojo Sonoshi. For more unsolicited takes, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.